This is the settings button right here. And we have 3 different tabs up here. I'm going to start over here. This one is your preferred language. Over here are sewing settings. For instance, thread cut after auto lock. You could turn that off or on. Needle stop position. When it rolls to a stop, do you want your needle up out of the fabric or down in the fabric? Auto tension. This adjusts your tension rather than having a little dial on the top of the machine. You can adjust your tension for all your stitches. Good page ahead. Presser foot pressure. You may want to change this if you have a knit that doesn't have good stretch recovery and you don't want wavy seams. You can make it less or more. Foot height for pivoting. This is where if you have the pivot button on and you stop and you want to have the presser foot a little higher, like if you have some thick batting you're sewing through, you can change that. Adjustable startup speed. Now, for the start-stop button, which is this button over here, I like to have it maybe a little lower because you have to press it again to stop your machine. So I'm going to put that at low. Now, the startup speed for my foot control, I can start it slow by just not pushing quite as hard. So I like to have it fast. I'm going to go ahead here. Upper thread breakage sensor. Now this is on by default, which is nice. It tells you if your thread has broken or if you've run out of thread on your spool. But if you want to just see how the needle works and you don't have any thread in your machine, you may want to turn that off so it doesn't give you the message that there's no thread there. Same thing with remaining bobbin thread. It will tell you if you're running low on bobbin thread, but if you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of bobbin thread on your bobbin, you can lower this down or turn it off completely. Just remember, if this is off and you run out of bobbin thread, it's not going to let you know with a little beep and a message on the screen. So I'm going to put that back to where it was. This is confirm to delete pattern combination. That gives you a little message. So you can turn it on or off if you want to. That has to do with pattern combinations. Variable zigzag sensitivity. That's if you're using the knee lifter with the stitch that you would find on your screen to do variable wider or narrower zigzag. You can make this more sensitive or less sensitive with this setting right here. Favorite stitch adjustment. That's one of my favorite settings. So by default it may be off, but you want to turn it on and I'll show you why. Push OK. Now if I'm going to do my zigzag, that zigzag is generally too narrow and too long for me. So I like to have it a little wider and maybe a little bit closer together like this. But I don't want to have to adjust that every single time I go to zigzag. But with that setting on, now I can go to favorite stitch, memorize it, and there I go. Notice it has the brackets around those settings. So I can choose a different stitch and I can go back to my zigzag and it's in my favorite settings. If you've adjusted several different stitches to be favorite stitches, you can delete that if you want to. Resume mode. This is another really handy one, especially if you're doing some quilting that takes several days to do. I like to turn that on, push OK. Now let's say we wanted to do some quilt piecing, and here we are in our 1/4 inch stitch. And I've done some quilting, and let's say I'm done for the day. As long as I have that setting on, I can turn off my machine and the next day come back, turn everything on. It will give me this message right here, resume last pattern. If I say OK, it'll go right back to where I was before. A really handy setting to have. I'm going to turn it off for now because otherwise it's going to give me that message every time I turn on the machine. Okay, so we're back to the beginning here. Now I'm going to go to this tab here. This is machine settings. As you notice, every time I push a button, it gives me a little beep. I can make that beep louder or softer or turn it off completely. I like to have it on so that I can hear whether I've pushed a button. Screen brightness is really nice. If you have a dark room like you're sewing at night, and who doesn't love to sew at night, right? You may want to have this down a little bit more. On the other hand, if you have a lot of bright sunlight in your room, You may want to have it up a little higher. Okay, and then you can go with inch or millimeter in your settings. Let's go forward here. Standby timer. Now that's really nice for if you stop sewing and you forget to come back. Well, what this will do, if you have it on, after 30 minutes, the screen will go dark, the lights will turn off, but your machine will still be where it was when you stop sewing. You just touch the screen and it comes back on. Auto off means it turns off the entire machine. Right now it's set for 7 hours. So if I go to answer the phone and don't come back till, say, the next day, well, it will turn off the machine and save power that way. Now you can also make this longer or shorter as you choose, or back to default like that. This will actually mechanically turn off your power switch when the 7 hours is up, or 4 hours as the case may be. Sewing light. Now this is nice. You can turn off or on your lights depending on what you want to do. Sometimes it's nice to have a light that comes from one direction if you have pressed in a line that you want to stitch right on that line just by the fold of the fabric. Having the light come at an angle is nice to have. Having them both on gives you plenty of light for sewing. And then your background color, of course, you can change that to whatever you want. Notice this is purple here, sort of a blue there, this white there. It's mostly just preference. A touch screen calibration. So this is where you're trying to go to a specific stitch, but instead of touching on a specific stitch, you have to touch maybe down in the corner to get it to work. That means your touch screen is out of calibration. You can fix that yourself by doing the touch screen calibration. You simply touch directly on the crosshair like that. Make sure you touch right in the center, and then it's all done. And then after about a second, it goes back to that screen. So you can do that. Just make sure you touch right in the center, not off to the side, because you want to make sure the touch screen calibration works just right. The next page has to do with erasing what's in the memory, either on your USB stick that you can put down here, or the memorized stitches that you have in your machine. So that's what formatting means. And of course you can reset everything to default by pushing yes. Now, once we're done changing our settings and adjusting things just like we want to, make sure you push the OK button. Because if you simply push the X, it will erase all the settings that you just changed. It will keep the ones from before. So I'm going to push OK. There we go. We have several other videos on this machine. Check out some of these. And that was settings. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like. And if you have comments, questions, or ideas for other videos you'd like to see, let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Bye.